This is CNN Breaking News.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Hake Barris. We have just learned of some breaking news that is going to change the college football world forever. Blake Harris, Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, and Brady Klein have just been put in charge of college football. You heard that right. They are officially in charge of college football. They now officially run it. They have a lot in store, but their first order of business, according to reports, is going to be taking place tonight. They have decided to do a full realignment of the conferences in college football. Tonight, they will be sharing their proposed plans on how these conferences will look moving forward. Tonight, they'll be sharing with you all the exclusive first look at their proposed realignments for the PAC-12 conference. You might want to sit down for this because it is going to be good.
Hi, this is Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson.
What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Leinart, 2004 Heisman Trophy winner.
Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Matt Barry from ESPN. You're getting ready to watch one of the best college football podcasts ever. It's the Harris Highlight Show.
You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're listening to the Harris Highlight Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from my girlfriend's room where the magic happens. And by magic, I mean me hosting the show this week. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Harris Highlight Show. Joining me this week is our college football analyst, Josh Schaefer.
Hello.
Our college football expert, Lyle Goldstein. Our executive producer, Brady Klein. And I am your host for the evening, Blake Harris. Boys, some exciting news. We had a CNN alert, and we had to keep this on the download last week. It was something that was in the works, but it's official now that we can share with you guys. We are officially in charge of college football. We run it. We can do whatever we want in college football. And the four of us over the last week, we were talking. We were trying to decide, as the new guys at the helm, what should be the first thing that we do in charge? Now, we had some long hours, we had some late nights, and the four of us, there were some heated arguments. Josh actually threatened to walk last Friday. That's how bad it got. But we all came to an agreement, and we thought the most important thing to do while running college football is to start with college conference realignments. And that's what we're going to be doing. So the 5 major power conference college football, we're going to realign all of them. So starting tonight, we are going to do the Pac-12, and over the course of the next 5 weeks, we're going to be unveiling the Power 5 conferences and how we are going to change them. So the four of us, now we don't have an agreed set yet. The four of us, we each have our own proposed plan, and we're actually going to turn to the fans to decide what they think is the best look, what they think the conferences should look like. So for you fans that are watching right now, you're going to have 4 different conference proposals. What you're going to do is to vote. You're going to make sure to go over to Twitter at the HH Show _. And again, that is at the HH Show with an underscore. Give us a follow. And following the show, we are going to post a poll of our 4 proposed conferences. And you guys are going to vote for which one you think is the best. And next week for our next conference, we're going to announce which Pac-12 realignment we are going to be going with. So again, we have the final say, but we are turning this to the fans to help us decide. So again, if you haven't already, make sure to go to follow us on Twitter at the HH Show _. Boys, are we excited? Are we looking forward to this brand new conference realignment that we got in the works?
Oh yeah, we've put aside our disputes, and this is the plan we came up with to move forward. However, the pay dispute for the 3 of us is still going on. So that's why I threatened to walk, and we might end up staging a coup. But as you can see behind me, and with my shirt and with my cup. We are all Pac-12 out today, boys.
Yeah, I actually threatened to walk as well with Josh, and I'm on a holdout. But luckily, Blake is essentially a Rob Manfred level commissioner, so hopefully this just doesn't go into flames at all.
Wow.
Just tell us when and where, Blake. Just tell us when and where.
Hey, I'll tell you boys.
We will show up for our checks.
I'll tell you boys when and where. All right, so how this is going to go tonight, everyone. By the way, we have 110 people watching right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate it. Again, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That way you can go and vote in the polls. How it's going to work is one by one, I think all of us put together a map of exactly how it's going to look, where the teams are. That way we have a better idea of where it looks. So one of us, whenever we're talking, the map is going to be on the screen. That way you guys can see whose proposed plan it is, and they're going to explain why. So who knows how long that's going to take. So we're each going to explain why we have teams here, why we have them out, all that fun stuff. And when we're done with that, we're going to be opening up the Q&A for more questions. But you guys, we had hundreds of questions last week. If you guys want an advantage, if you want us to answer your question, make sure to follow us on Twitter at the HHShow_. Follow us, leave us a question, and you guys get first dib. That way, because one, we want to answer the best questions we got from our most loyal fans, and two, it's a better way to get more people involved. And again, follow us on Twitter. So if you haven't already, make sure to follow us on Twitter. But guys, I think
ask fun questions too.
Ask fun questions. Those are always a good thing to go. But guys, I think Lyle is actually going to get things kicked off. Normally we kind of have like a rotation, but Lyle, I mean, the way he was going at it with Brady earlier in the week, he wanted to go first. Lyle was begging Brady to go first because initially it was going to be Brady, but Lyle, he got the final say. He had a few curse words. I
thought Brady was going to die. I thought Brady was going to end up dead.
I'm scared for my life.
A mini altercation. So all those days of Lyle working on nothing but biceps in the gym, it looked like it was going to pay off. But Lyle, you get your chance. It's your time to shine. You got a life-size poster of you playing high school baseball in the background. It is your time as one of the 4 college football leaders to share. And now, mind you, aside from Brady, because Brady has to put this up, none of us know what these proposed plans are. Like Josh and Lyle, they don't know mine. We don't know Josh's. Brady just knows Oliver's because he has to put it in the graphic, but none of us also know Brady. So this is going to be our first reaction initially to seeing these for the first time as well. So it's going to be a complete shock to us. So without further ado, Brady, you can get Lyle's thing on. And Lyle, if you have any opening statements, go right ahead.
Well, first I just want to say I didn't even know I'd been given the green light to go first. I thought we were just going in the normal order, despite all the heat we got into this week. Yeah. But I'm happy to go first. Part of the reason I want to go first is I feel like mine isn't as like crazy as Brady's or Blake's might end up being. But I don't know. I tried to make it somewhat fun and somewhat realistic. But I will ask you guys before I start, should I wait for the graphic to come up and then start going, or should I?
Yeah, I was just waiting to put the graphic up till you were.
Okay. Well, whenever you're ready, you know what? I'll hint this. Josh loves the saying no teams. It's almost the opposite of that for how my list is going to go here with the realignment.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right.
Wow.
There we go. You love to see it. Okay, so we got the PAC-16 in the house. The first thing I'll say is none of the teams from the original Pac-12 got booted. Now, I know maybe you're thinking, yeah, this is kind of boring or this isn't that original. And don't worry, as the weeks go on and we start doing more conferences, I'll start booting some teams and yanking some teams and making it more interesting. But honestly, and maybe this is just because I've followed the Pac-12 for so long, but like I honestly feel like good or bad as any of these 12 teams are, that each of them like have a significance. Like even a team like Oregon State, who look, they're not great, and we've talked about that on this show, but they still win some games. Like, it might taste like vinegar in our mouths to say, but like, they beat ASU this year. Like every team competes against everybody, and that's kind of what I like about the Pac-12, the fact that there's not always one clear-cut favorite, and every week is anybody's game. But having said that, there's a few teams in this western side of the country that I felt like could be added and kind of make things pretty spicy. So I wanted to keep it an even number of teams because that makes the divisions easier. So you add 2 teams to the south, like San Diego State, and you add Hawaii. Hawaii just had a 10-win season this year. San Diego State's been good for some time now. So there's your 2 teams in the south. But the thing that really kind of got me excited was the two teams that I added up in the north. One, Boise State, and this has been talked about for a while. Like, they're so much better than the Mountain West Conference they play in. I mean, they won a Fiesta Bowl all the way back in 2007. I mean, they've had so many good years since then. Let's see what they can do in a Power 5 conference, because I'm going to be honest, I think they do pretty well. But not only that, you add in a rivalry game with Eastern Washington during rivalry week, because everybody's got their rival team during rivalry week. Now, I know it's a little bit of a long drive. It's like a little bit longer than it would be from Seattle to Pullman for the Apple Cup. But what do these two teams have in common? This was like my one big pitch idea, is this rivalry game would be called the greatest show on Smurf turf. So there's my Pac-16, Eastern Washington, Boise State with a rival game, San Diego State, Hawaii added in the South. And we got 16 teams battling for one big trophy.
First off, the idea of the Eastern Washington Boise State rivalry of the blue field with the red field is absolutely fantastic. I love that. Reading the comments right now, everyone is going off about the Eastern Washington, which I must admit that did catch me off guard. I mean, there were a lot of teams I considered adding to mine, and Eastern Washington never stumbled across a team I would add. But I mean, Lyle, he explained it well. He had some good points, and overall, I mean, it is a big jump for them to make, but overall, I respect it. So I mean, the only notable thing is the Eastern Washington, but like I said, Lyle had a good explanation, so I respect it.
And let me add one more thing on them too. 6 of the last 10 years in this decade, they won 10 plus games. So they're not like a slouch team either. Like, I know they might take them some time, but they're not a slouch.
Yeah, that's something that I want to point out too. I mean, the East, I'm going to stay away from the rivalries because I'm going to touch on my own thing for the rivalries before we get into the two guys that are probably going to go absolutely crazy with their realignments. But the Eastern Washington thing did catch me off guard. It is worth pointing out for the people that aren't familiar with either one, FCS football, or two, FCS football on the West Coast, the Big Sky is nasty. Like, the Big Sky is by far the best conference in the FCS. And I think that a lot of people, I'm not super familiar with Eastern Washington before the past 3 years when I followed UC Davis, but Eastern Washington is a good program.
Hey, Cooper Cup.
That's where Cooper Cup went. But yeah, I mean, they have a good program. They've obviously produced some decent talent. And then for Hawaii, I like it. It's something that makes sense. The only thing that I've kind of thought about for Hawaii is the consistency. So that's something that I took into effect for when I did my realignment. But if you're going to add Boise State and Eastern Washington in the North, I think you have to add another team in the South, and the team that makes the most sense is, because obviously you're adding San Diego State too, which makes sense. But if you're adding a second team to the South, I think it's Hawaii. I like it.
Yeah, I think the Hawaii addition was one that, I mean, obviously, I think all of us can very well agree on the Boise State and San Diego State edition. And that's one thing whenever anybody asks us a question, who are you going to add to the Pac-12 if you could add anybody? I think almost unanimously, it's always those two schools in Boise State and SDSU. But Hawaii, when I saw this, when Lyle sent this to me, I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. And I get it. It actually makes more sense for the Hawaii to play in the Pac-12 location-wise than it does the Mountain West. So a good addition for Hawaii, and I'd love to see, if only this could have happened when we were there, we could have gone to Hawaii to cover a game or two.
No doubt about that. I mean, look, if you add two teams and you add Boise State in the North and you add San Diego State in the South, like, that's fine. But you want to make it a little spicy and interesting, right? So you got to see what a team like Eastern Washington or Hawaii can do. Like, they'll probably start out at the bottom, but you give them 4 or 5 years, you never know.
I like it. So, Lyle, well done. A lot of people, again, I said make it interesting because Lyle said he wasn't really going to have any that were like too crazy. But I said, Lyle, make it somewhat interesting, make it entertaining. Here I am just thinking he's going to like add another team or two, but he over here adds Eastern Washington, which is definitely getting the people talking. So, Lyle, well done. I like the Pac-16. So, Brady or Josh? I think Josh said he might want to go next. So, Josh, do you want to go up next?
Yeah, yep, I'll go next.
Right,
before you show mine, no, I'll talk though.
Yeah, I'll talk while I'm pulling it up.
Before Josh goes, let me just say, for those of you that are joining us right now, we're running college football now, and our first order of business is a complete Power 5 conference realignment. And tonight we are doing the Pac-12. In the coming weeks, we're going to do other conferences as well. In order for us to decide on who's going to, all four of us have different, opinions. Go to our Twitter at the HHShow_. Following this show, we are going to post our 4 proposals. You guys are going to vote for who you think has the best proposal and what you want the Pac-12 to turn into. And next week, when we do our next conference, we are going to announce the winning group and what the Pac-12 is going to look like moving forward. So again, it is at the HHShow_. Follow us and also ask us Q&A questions for later in the show. You guys get top priority over the YouTube chat as well. So again, at the HHShow_. All right, Josh, we turn it to you now.
Brady, are you ready to go or not yet?
I'm ready to go, but I'll let you talk if you want.
Okay. So before we even get into it, I'll point out that I understand that this is a football show. So that was my first priority in making this one and the next 4 conference realignment, charts that we're going to do. But since, especially for this one, I'm probably not going to go into this much detail for some of the future ones, but obviously growing up watching Pac-12 football and other sports, this was one that I was excited for. But I went into more detail on this one because I think that adding teams to the Pac-12 would require a little more research than just throwing in a team that's really good in football. So Brady, if you want to pull mine up, I'll get into it. I've got some notes ready to go. So as you can see here, I did not even go into, I didn't even go as crazy as Lyle did. First, I'll point out, I decided to throw in some schools that just missed the cut as maybe a teaser for what we'll do in the future. And Fresno State was one that I considered. BYU was one that I considered. Utah State, and then kind of just for fun, UC Davis. If they built a bigger stadium and brought in a little more revenue, because they've got all the sports that are there that would fit in the Pac-12. But these 4 schools just didn't meet the criteria that, for example, Boise State and San Diego State did. So I'll talk about San Diego State first real quick. They haven't had a losing season since 2009. They've been to 10 straight bowl games. They've had 8 wins in 8 of the last 10 seasons. They've shown that they are one of the FCS schools that remains consistent year by year by year. And one thing for Fresno State, in my opinion, they just did that. By the way, I've had this hat since I was like 7. It does not fit. Fresno State for me, I think I've told you guys this before. It seems like, and this is not an actual stat. It seems like Fresno State is one of those group of 5 schools that goes from 10-2 to 4-8, back to 10-2, and then to 4-8. They're just not consistent enough, in my opinion, and both Boise State and San Diego State are. For SDSU, they have plans to get out of Qualcomm. They're building a new Aztec Stadium that's off campus. It's already in the works. You guys should look it up. It looks fantastic. Here's one that stands out to me. They've played at least one Pac-12 school every year since 2011. And in 2010, they played Utah before they joined the Pac-12. They're 6-5 in that span against Pac-12 teams, but 5-1 in their last 6 games. And I think that's really impressive because that shows that even right now, they can show that not only are they competitive on a national level, but they can compete immediately in the Pac-12. There was a lot of concern when they first did the conference realignment, adding Utah and Colorado, if they were going to be able to compete in the Pac-12. And obviously Utah was coming in right after they had that undefeated season in 08 or 09 or whatever it was and beat Bama. So people were concerned right away. And Colorado, they had some struggles early on, but look at Utah now. Like they were they were the number 4 team for a time at one point last season. They've won the Pac-12 South. Both Utah and Colorado have won the division since they joined the Pac-12. And I think that immediately San Diego State would be able to compete. And even talking from a Pac-12 standpoint, they already have UCLA, Arizona, Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, and ASU on their schedule all the way up through 2028. Style of football fits well. They've got Division I sports across the board that fit into the Pac-12. They're already in the conference for men's soccer because schools like ASU and USC don't have men's soccer. Got a good baseball program. And it's a good school because the Pac-12 does have an academic standard that they hold these athletic departments to, which most people don't even realize, but that's true. And SDSU is a good school. And I think it kind of fits in. I mean, San Diego State is a decent fan base, and I think they fit in well. And then up to Boise State, this is another obvious one. I don't need to get into their consistency, but they're 165-34 in the last 15 years, which is third in the FBS, behind Alabama and Ohio State. So that doesn't really need any diving into. They obviously don't have a huge stadium. They've got the Smurf turf, which is what everybody knows them for, but their attendance ratings are very similar to Oregon and Washington State and Oregon State. They fit into the geographical landscape very well. From a rivalry standpoint, they had that wild game with Oregon with LeGarrette Blount when he threw the punch. So there's something right there ready to go if they get them on the schedule every single year. And then with UW, just played them in a bowl game. They've played Pac-12 teams in bowl games before. And they've already got games on their schedule with Oregon, Oregon State, Washington State, all the way up through 2031. So that's something that I think is interesting too. They also have a softball program. They just added a baseball program, and there are schools in the Pac-12 that don't have softball, like USC doesn't have softball. Colorado's the only team that doesn't have baseball. So now you're adding 2 more teams to the Pac-12 that have programs that can compete at all these other sports. And here's another one that's funny. They have a beach volleyball program, which is like pretty popular among some of the Pac-12 schools. The only thing here that, I mean, this is kind of being really nitpicky because obviously they fit in from a football standpoint. The one thing would be academics. And I've seen a couple articles on whether or not Boise State would fit academically into the Pac-12. Their acceptance rate is like 82%, which is very similar to ASU, U of A, Oregon, Oregon State. But like the fact of the matter is that all those schools have like nationally, like top ranked programs academically across the country. And Boise State just doesn't have that. They're like 293 nationally as a university, which obviously isn't bad, but like it's not even close to some of the other schools. But from an athletic standpoint, and especially a football standpoint, I think both Boise State and San Diego State fit in perfectly, and they fit great into both the North and the South.
Well, short round, he wraps it up best. Or the world, I'm like hearing like an echo. He said Josh went full nerd, so himself on this breakdown, which I mean was great. Josh did his research, and everyone's like leaving comments like, "Oh, I didn't know that this team doesn't have this team. This team has this kind of a sport." So Josh, well done on the breakdown. A lot of people are already saying you have the best one so far because you don't have Eastern Washington in it.
Thanks. I mean, I'm not. This one was pretty boring, which is why I put in the schools that missed the cut, and I did so much research. I probably won't do like that much in-depth research for the other conferences because I'm probably going to move more teams around. But I also wanted to toss in the schools that missed the cut, which simply like they didn't even fit some of the criteria that I had for both Boise State and San Diego State of all the stuff I just went into. Like those 4 schools don't have that. But that's kind of maybe a teaser for what we'll see in the future.
Well, I must say, what gives you probably bonus points on the map, I know I didn't. I like to have the schools that just missed the cut, which I definitely think, I mean, if you were to rank these 4 who missed the cut, I assume UC Davis is the one that was at the very top that literally just.
Yeah, that was the one. Honestly, I was so close to just kicking out Oregon and USC and then just tossing in Davis, just the one.
And I must say, I also like the little dotted line you did that separates the North and the South.
That was a last minute addition right there because it was one of those things where it's like maybe move Utah or Colorado to the north, but then you also don't realize obviously I know where the states are, but when you think about it, I never really realized that Colorado was like that close to the middle of the country.
Yeah.
So I kind of figured, all right, let's do the dotted line just to separate North and South. Because realistically, like if I were to add maybe 1 or 2 more teams in here, like Cal and Stanford might be in the South. So I decided to leave it as is because I thought that if you leave Utah and Colorado in the South rather than Stanford, Cal, you can't break up those 2 schools, and you might as well keep the 2 mountain schools together. And if you keep Utah in the South, I think it makes the South a little more competitive.
All right, so Brady, Lyle, if there's anything you want to add, you guys can add it. If not, we are going to head over to Brady's proposal.
Yeah, Josh, I really like yours, especially the way you drew the map. You did a great job there. Topography. You're a big fan. I know you're a big topographer, so great job with the map.
Time. Big cartography guy.
I just want to
map too, right?
No.
Isn't topography like the mountain maps?
Yeah, but it's the study of map.
I thought that was cartography. Dude, I don't even know. I should have learned. If I went full nerd, I should know.
I just want to clarify. In our heated discussion, we did say that consistent relegation is like in play, right? With these realignments, just like in European soccer, or no?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, because
Why not?
because that's the thing. So like Josh left a couple teams out, but you know what? If BYU or UC Davis has a couple really good years and one of the 14 teams on his list doesn't, kick somebody out, add somebody in. It's like the same thing. It was like the same kind of idea I had with Eastern Washington. They're bad, you kick them out, you add somebody else. Or like North Dakota State, when we eventually get to them in another week, where will they be? People want to see if any of these FCS teams can do well. So yeah, I like the idea of the relegation, but for what Josh did, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I mean, you show the schools that are kind of on the outside looking in, and then you show the two obvious schools that really deserve to play in Power 5 football.
Am I up next?
Yep, Brady, you are
all right.
You're officially up.
I'm really looking forward. I need you guys to monitor the comments for this because I went pretty wild. I went wild.
Get ready because Brady's about to. I don't know what he's going to do, but
so
now
I will say this. Looking back on it right now, there was one school I wish I got rid of but didn't. But hey, it is what it is. We'll let it be. Let's pull up my share.
Also, I just noted Coster posted "Go Ags."
Go Ags.
Okay, that's not too bad.
All right. Well, you take a basic look at it, but then you also don't realize that I kicked out 3 Pac-12 schools. Cal, Stanford, and Colorado. You're gone. You're gone.
Okay.
Get out. Cal, I'm telling you this because we're not going to work on this conference. Cal, you're in the Mountain West. And I'll tell you this too. Hey, Stanford, you're smart. Go to the Ivy League. We don't want you here anymore. So Stanford's in the Ivy League and Cal is in the Mountain West. I'm not telling you where Colorado's going, but I brought in 3 schools, 2 of which we've all had. Boise State, San Diego State. You all had the great reasoning. And Utah State. You know, this gives us almost 2 schools in every state, except for Idaho, which has 1. California's got 3.
Brady, so I just got to say right now, the comments are going absolutely
nuts.
I must say, though, I do like Stanford going to the Ivy League. I love that.
Yes.
Well,
yeah, dude.
I guess Cal can go to the Ivy League, too. I mean, it is Berkeley.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's remember, like, Stanford as a school is the quality of an Ivy League school. The Ivy League, though, is all in the Northeast. Like, that is quite the trip to go from Stanford to Yale.
And Lyle, it's okay. They'll all just get extra games, like people who go to Hawaii. They all get a 13th game.
Play a game.
What's a further flight from San Francisco to the East Coast or from Hawaii to Arizona?
It's the same.
It's the same.
It's close, yeah.
It's got to be the same.
All right. So
Stanford, you will now be known as the Yale of the West, of course. And so
wait, who?
Stanford, they're the Yale of the West or the Harvard of the West, whatever you want to go for that. You kick out 3 schools. I'm the first one of us to kick out any schools. And I tell you this, I've kicked out a school from all 5 conferences at some point. This one's got to be the craziest one that I've really done, though, is Cal and Stanford. All right, you get rid of them. But I will say this. What better day to start this on? What was that? What better day to start this on than 10 years ago today, June 16th, is when the Pac-12 or Pac-10 expanded to 12 teams. So I'm getting rid of one of those schools that was added in 2010, and you're getting kicked out. See you, Colorado. You're gone. Happy 10-year anniversary, but it only lasted 10 years. That's all you get.
So Brady, my one question for you is where do you split the line for the North and the South? Is it in Utah that you split the line?
Nope, it's coastal and mountain now.
It's coastal and mountain.
You know what?
It's coastal. It's coastal and desert. It's coastal and desert.
Dude.
All right.
Poor Nevada, man. Look at them.
No one wants a thing to do with UNLV or Nevada. No one wants a thing to do with them.
Wow. Brady, initially everyone was just like, what is Brady doing? But after you explained it and people are actually taking it into account, people are like, that's actually not bad.
It makes sense.
The whole idea.
I'm looking back at it now. I kind of wish I kept Cal and got rid of Oregon State. But it is what it is.
Wow. I respect
you know what?
Again, I said do something that's crazy, do something different.
Do something crazy.
And again, that's something like Lyle with Eastern Washington that never came across my mind. Taking Cal and Stanford out, that never crossed my mind. So Brady, I mean, tip of my cap to you, bud.
Yeah, I'm the first one of us to get rid of any of these schools. So I got rid of 3 of them, brought in 3 new ones.
Yeah, as long as nobody kicks out the Cougs, and I'm fine.
Josh, what did you go to like Marshalls and they just had like, a bunch of those like $3 hats and you just
No,
picked up?
so believe it or not, that 2007 Fiesta Bowl game, I think I mentioned this on the show before. I used to root for Boise State growing up because that season I knew they were obviously really good with Zabransky and Ian Johnson. So my dad and I like planned ahead, like we're watching the Boise State Oklahoma game and Boise's gonna win. And sure enough, they won, and obviously one of the craziest, like the top 5 game of all time. And then after that game, when my dad and I would play Xbox, we created a dynasty with Boise State. And on NCAA football 2007, I got bored after 4 years of doing the My Player. So my dad took Josh Schaefer, the running back, converted him to Steve Schaefer, the coach, and coached until 2037, moved Boise into the Pac-12. The Pac-12 kicked out Stanford and in like NCAA 2007, and we kind of just rooted for Boise for a while. So that's why I have this hat. I think somebody got it online for me. The jersey was something that we found at like a Burlington coat factory or a Ross or something for like $5, and there's nothing wrong with it. This was baseball just fell off my table. Saved by Quick.
SBQ.
Saved by Quick every day, boys. This was a hat. I went and visited family in Oregon, and at one point we drove up to Mount St. Helens in Washington, and they've got like a satellite Wazoo campus right at the southern border. So I walk in wearing like a USC hat and a USC shirt. I'm like 6 or 7 years old, and I walk onto the campus thing like, where's a football stadium? And they're like about like 150 miles at least that way by Idaho. And I was like, oh, well, that's boring. But I went into a little store and bought a hat, and this is my 6-year-old Josh hat that I wore several times.
Well, there you go.
Long story long.
Still fits.
Not at all.
I will say this one thing.
Highlight show without a Josh story.
A Josh story.
It exceeds its time limit by way too much.
I will say this.
Turned into pool hats for me and the girlfriend. We'll sit on like a raft or whatever, and like these can get wet. Like they don't fit me. So
one more point I have to say about Utah State. 8 of the last 9 seasons, regular seasons, they have a winning record. So they obviously warrant a very solid schedule. And the one they had was a couple years ago. They had, I think, 5 wins. So they went 6 and 7 a couple times, but regular season, they've 8 of the last 9 years have been a winning season for Utah State.
Will Cementblock hit it perfectly. Josh's stories are why these shows are over an hour. But hey, that's what makes them so great, because they're Josh's stories. But Brady, I think it's time. I think it's officially time to get my vision, my Pac-12 realignment. Now, I am kind of bummed that Lyle took my idea, because I am going with the Pac-16. I'm going with a 16-team conference, and I'm just going to go from the top. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. So there are some similar teams here that you guys see, but there are some that I have added, and there's one team that I took away. Guys, we keep the Washington schools because you got to do that. We keep the Oregon schools. You got to do that. Boise State, that's an absolutely, I mean, it's kind of like the basic one everyone thinks. I mean, if the Pac-12 eventually expands, it has to be Boise State that goes. I'm the one would assume. So Boise State, that's an easy one right there. And now we go to Utah. We keep Utah, but we add BYU because we need the holy war to come to the Pac-12. We need the greatest rivalry with the least amount of curse words to bring to the Pac-12, which is always, it's like week 1, I think, every year also. It's like the biggest rivalry game for them, but they do it week 1. So we keep the holy war. We bring it to the Pac-12. Now I'm reading the comments right now, and I see everyone's already going off about UNLV. And let me explain why, guys, because it was tough. I wanted potentially Utah State to come in or Nevada to come in. It was going to be one of those. But then I thought about UNLV, and I thought about how they now play in the brand new Allegiant Stadium, home to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, guys, if you're a Pac-12 fan, would you rather travel to see a road game at Utah State, at Nevada, or in Vegas at the brand new Raiders Stadium? That's just me. And overall, I think with UNLV playing at this new Raiders Stadium, I'm not saying they're going to become a top 25 team. I definitely think it's going to help recruiting a little, where more players are going to want to play in an NFL stadium. So I think UNLV, that's going to help as well. And then especially every year in the Pac-12, you get to go to a game that's at an NFL stadium. I think that's a bonus. So that's why I go with UNLV.
Well, Blake, you're a degenerate, so you'll find any excuse to go to Vegas.
I'll find any excuse to go to Vegas. So then you got Cal, you got Stanford, they stay. You got SC, you got UCLA, they stay. You had San Diego State. This was a tough one for me as well because I was thinking about Fresno State. I was thinking about them, but overall, I think San Diego State, they've just proven to be kind of just a better team over the last few years, over the last decade, where Fresno State's had some good years. They've really struggled. Overall, I think just San Diego. I mean, again, no disrespect to Fresno, but guys, if I'm going to travel for a game, do you guys want to go to San Diego or do you want to go to Fresno? I think the answer is simple right there. You want to go to San Diego. We keep both Arizonas right there. And you add Hawaii because, again, location-wise, traveling-wise, who doesn't want to have games in Hawaii? Who doesn't want to travel to Hawaii? And I also think if you were to put Hawaii in the Pac-16, I think that's going to make Hawaii a much better recruiting base where, I mean, they still get some solid guys. They have decent years every year, but they play Mountain West competition. If you have Hawaii now in the Pac-16, I think that's going to really help with recruiting. It's going to make Hawaii a much better team. So again, I said that with the LV because of the Raiders Stadium, they're going to get better recruits. With Hawaii, if they're in the Pac-16, they're going to get better recruits. And overall, I think BYU, they need to be with Utah. Boise State, they need to be with us. And San Diego State, I gave them the edge over Fresno State. But that's my Pac-16 for you boys. Thank you.
I like it. And
Yeah.
here's it's also worth pointing out with the San Diego State Fresno debate. I think we've all kind of pointed out Fresno's had some really good years and they've shown that they can be competitive. They just haven't been as consistent as SDSU. And the point that Blake makes about he didn't necessarily say the word market, but market is kind of important too, because if we're being real, San Diego State is San Diego's a pro sports town. And they don't have a professional football team anymore. And they have a fan base that could immediately surround a San Diego State team playing in a Power 5 conference. And I think that more teams will be inclined to play at San Diego State than Fresno State, considering both ASU and Stanford and UCLA are all going to be playing them in San Diego in the near future. ASU and Stanford already have UCLA this year. So.
Also, let me just say, I don't even know if I mentioned it. I took Colorado out. I kicked Colorado out of the
I didn't even notice that.
So I had one. I think because I was seeing some comments, and I don't think I
didn't either.
But yeah, if Brady wants to get it back up, or if he even has it, yeah, I kicked Colorado out. I forgot to bring that up because Colorado, when you look at the map, I think Josh mentioned it. I know where Colorado is. I know where states are, but I just never really realized how far away they pretty much are, kind of from a lot of these schools where. You can't see it here, but yeah, Colorado. I mean, again, if you know your maps, you know where Colorado is on the map. Colorado is just far from everything. It's a lot closer. So, spoiler alert, they're not in here, so they're going to be in another conference when we do that in the coming weeks, right there. But overall, those are my 16 teams. Brady, since we might have a lot of people that are coming in that might have missed it, do you want to go back and just kind of show everyone's conferences one by one before we wrap things up?
Sure. Here's yours.
Well, while you do that, so if you came in late, so essentially we're doing a realignment because we now run college football. We want you guys to vote for who you think had the best realignment plan. So go to our Twitter @the HH_show_, and following the show, we are going to post a poll with the 4 different proposals, and you guys vote for who you think has the overall best Pac-12 realignment plan. Next week, when we do a new conference, we are going to announce who received the most votes, determined by the fans, and that's going to be the new Pac-12. So take a look at these 4. Brady, leave it up for 5 to 10 seconds each, and then later tonight when we post it, you guys can go vote. So that was my Pac-16 conference that I came up with. While we wait for another one, and who we got? We got Josh's.
It's mine.
The Pac-12. Josh kept it as the Pac-12.
No, it's the Pac-14.
Oh, Pac-14. Sorry.
I was gonna mess with it, but I didn't want to screw around with Photoshop. So
we got Lyle's here, which is the Pac-16, I think, right, Lyle?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Eastern Washington, Boise State, Hawaii, San Diego State added.
And then we got Brady's coming up right now. I think.
Friend of the show, Jordan K. Jordan K sent me a Snapchat that said nothing There's nothing quite like raising the academic scores than kicking out Stanford and Cal and bringing in Boise and Utah State.
Hey, we're the conference of champions, not the conference of math bowl champions. Who cares?
So if you're watching right now, leave a comment in the live chat as to who you think has the best conference. And then again, later you can go vote. But after you leave your comment, we're actually going to be doing a Q&A now for the next 20, 30 minutes or so. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, if you guys went and you followed the show on Twitter and asked us a question, you guys got top priority over there. So we're still going to be answering questions from the YouTube live chats because we want to get you guys in. But like I said, the top priority goes to the Twitter one. So again, if you haven't already, at the HH show _. So again, leave those comments for anything have the best. A lot of them coming in. Lyle's is the best. We got Blake. Another one says Lyle. We got Blake. Someone says Lyle is terrible. Pac-12 shorts. Josh is in first. Blake in second. Lyle third. Disqualified Brady.
Thank you. I do have to say, no one mentioned who brought Hawaii back in. The return of CTG, Coach Todd Graham, to the
That's
Pac-12.
true.
And also, you add more Mormonism to it because Hawaii, now granted, BYU Hawaii's not, I don't even think they have a football team. You're adding more Mormons, which makes everything better. So now we all have Joseph Smith on our side. All right, guys. So I'm going to go to Twitter right now. I'm going to pick up some of the questions that we've got. We actually got a lot of questions, so this is going to be a lot of fun. So again, if you haven't already, make sure to follow us on Twitter at the HH show _. Our first one comes from our good old buddy, Andrew Coster. If you can go back in time and stop any head coach in college football history from getting fired, who would you choose and why? Brady's like, I know.
I know. Ed Orgeron from USC.
Yeah, that's the easy one, I think, is to say Coach O. Like, looking back, I'm very like, I don't want to say devil's advocate. I just try to see both sides of the equation. So Josh is the worst. Thank you. I appreciate that comment. I don't know if that's about me personally or my alignment. It's tough because like I understand why they let Coach O go, but hindsight's 2020. You know, like looking back, you're like, why would you ever let him go? But think about it. Like the reason he got fired at SC and then the reason he gets hired at LSU is because he went as the DC. So like Les Miles got fired too, and a lot of people were mad about Les Miles being fired, and they kind of got lucky that they had Coach O right there too. So LSU just didn't want to make the same mistake SC did.
I just gotta say, I like short run. Was Blake planted by the Mormons to slowly try and convert people? Yes, I was.
Blake really embodies.
Go Josh. Brady is trash.
Forever.
Yes,
I like
Blake really embodies the Mormon religion.
Lyle, who do you got?
So if I
He's
had to
drinking
pick
Diet Coke.
one, I'll bounce off what you guys said going back to LSU. I'll say Nick Saban leaving LSU. Now, granted, I know he won one national championship, and I know he ended up going to the NFL for a short stint. But like at the same time, you know, LSU didn't have a whole, you know, big amount of success. I mean, you know, success being a relative term. They didn't win a whole lot of national titles and like really big games in between Saban and Ed O this year. So it just makes me think if Saban had stayed, you know, maybe they would have been the Alabama of the SEC West instead of Alabama being the Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. That's kind of like a basic one. Someone commented, which was a good one, Mike Leach at Texas Tech. That's a good one. I'm going to go just if Chip Kelly would have stayed at Oregon, just I think they eventually would have gotten one. I mean, they were just so good. I just think if he wouldn't have left for the NFL, if he would have stayed, they may have gotten one. So for those of you that are watching right now, we're doing a Q&A. So if you have any college football questions, any life-related questions, why I drink Diet Coke over Coca-Cola, ask that in the question. Also, Brady,
why?
In regards to the Mormon thing, they I guess they can drink Diet Coke if they're allowed, but they drink the caffeine-free Diet Coke.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Like,
what
Short Round also says, when I picture the perfect Mormon, it's Steve Young, Jimmer Fredette, and Blake Harris.
There you go. Jimmer Fredette. Now that, a great Mormon right there. Our next question, it comes from Sports by JR. What's a past team you would like to drop into this upcoming season? And he shares his. He says the 2007 West Virginia team. So if you guys could take any team from the past and put them in the 2020 season, who would you guys pick?
I mean, growing up, I think the easy one for me is either 2004, 2005. In any SC team between 2003 and 2008, really, for me, because like all of those SC teams that didn't go to the national championship were in the Rose Bowl at like number 3 or 4, so that's a playoff team. But if I'm going away from SC, I'm saying 2000. Whatever the really good Kellen Moore Boise State team was. I don't know if it was 08 or 09 or whatever it was. That was a team that like got up there in the standings. And I think now like we can have the UCF debate, but with how high Boise State was those few years, that's a team that's in the playoff right now. Like, I'm sorry, UCF, it's just a fact. Like, that team was already proven. They had already beaten good teams. Like, this is an argument we had with the Boise State UCF thing. UCF did not schedule any of these teams that Boise State was doing. Like, the caliber of opponents was just off the charts. And I know you can say, well, they didn't want to play them, or like they didn't want to play UCF. Like, I get all that, but Boise State had all of these big time programs that wanted to play them for a reason, and Boise State then proved themselves against all of them. So what, like that Kellen Moore dynasty there, I'll say them because that's a team that today makes the college football playoff.
Those are two good ones. If I had to pick, I know it's recent, but I'm gonna pick this one because we've had it before. So the question is if you could take any past team and bring them into 2020.
Yes.
Okay. Wait. Sorry. That changes my answer then. I thought it was bringing the last season. If it was last season, I would have said I would have brought the 2018 Clemson team into last season to see how they fared against LSU, which kind of goes off.
You could do that too. You could do.
I was gonna say, yeah, just because going off Blake's video where it has like LSU literally dismantling every single team in the country in 2019,
except BYU, except the Mormons,
except BYU. I was always curious to see how those two teams would have fared if they had squared off. But if I had to take one team like from the past to bring into 2020, Josh had a good one with Boise State. I'd honestly be curious to see like how some of these Marcus Mariota Oregon teams like from 2012, 2013, 2014 would do now. Just because, those teams were really good. And, the Pac-12's kind of been out of the picture for a little bit. Just so, Oregon at least got to a national title game. I'd be curious to see how one of those teams would fare in the Pac-12 and on a national level now.
Yeah. I like it. Brady, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say my team. 2001 Miami.
Yeah.
There really wasn't a more overall stacked team than that 01 Miami squad. Frank Gort, your running back. You had Ed Reed on your defense. I think Vince Wilfork was still there at the time. I think Jeremy Shockey was your tight end. I think Andre Johnson was one of your wide receivers. The list just goes on and on for how good they actually were. I just pulled it up right here. Clinton Portis was the other running back. So your two running backs are Frank Gore and Clinton Portis and Willis McGahee. So yeah, that 05 USC team is great, but I think that 01 Miami team could easily hold their own. Knowing what we know now about all those players, I think that 01 Miami squad would be tough to beat.
True, but I think it's another thing if you take that the Miami team that lost. So aside from like the Miami dynasty that was amazing and the USC dynasty that was really good and the teams they won with, I want to see those two, the Miami team and the USC team that lost in the championship. Because I think if you take them now and you give them the college football playoff, or the teams that like just missed out on the title, I think if you put now, then that would be their kind of second chance to prove themselves. And I think both of those teams, maybe not win the college football playoff, but like they're competitive in it today. And that's why I think Boise State would be a good fit too, because they never even got a chance at all.
I like these historic teams. When I saw this one, I came up with one, and I believe the 1996 ASU team, the one that lost to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, I'd like them to come for this upcoming year so we can see just, probably one of the more dominant ASU teams, like what if the last 50 years or like maybe ever, because I want to see ASU compete for a natty, compete for a Rose Bowl. I think that'd be cool. So take that team, and we got Jake the Snake at the helm. Maybe he can do something. But then again, Jaden Daniels is pretty good too, so I think he'll be just fine. ASU's team this upcoming year actually might be better. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I think bringing that ASU team back, I think that'd be a lot of fun. All right, guys, let's try to go through a lot. We're now moving So thank you to everyone that asked us, on Twitter, but we don't want to have this strictly Twitter questions. We do want to get a lot of people involved on YouTube. So again, in future shows, if you want to have, an upper hand of getting your question answered, follow the show on Twitter at the HH Show. Where we give those guys top priority before we go over to YouTube. All right, guys. Wilson D wants to know, will Scott Frost eventually bring Nebraska a championship? I'll tell you this, Wilson D, no, but there is a chance for a Big Ten championship. There you go.
That's why I started nodding, because I thought that's where we were going.
Or maybe the new Cheez-It Bowl championship. That's the way things are going there. Who knows?
Hey, the Cheez-It Bowl is now a bigger bowl game, I guess.
I know.
Josh and I were talking about this a few weeks back, and we said, all right, when Scott Frost got hired at Nebraska, we're like, all right, he's going to be, in his first year, he could very well be Big Ten Coach of the Year. That didn't work out so well, but I still have the utmost confidence in Scott Frost and the Nebraska squad. So I think, a national championship, probably not in the near future at least, but I would say if Scott Frost can continue an upward trend, I'd say yes, you're going to see a Big Ten championship, or at least compete for a Big Ten championship soon for Nebraska.
Yeah, I think I don't know about a national championship. I'll say they compete for a Big Ten title. This is something that here's me playing devil's advocate again. This is something I mentioned in our private group chat the other day. Like, is Scott Frost maybe not the guy? I mean, I know that he hasn't had a lot of time there and he hasn't had time to build the program, but is he not the guy to like be the savior to this program? Maybe he turned UCF around, but like maybe somebody else could have turned them around from 0-12 to, or he wasn't there when they were 0-12, but for example, he took them from 0-12 to 13-0. Is he the guy? I don't know. I think he'll do something at Nebraska, but I'm starting to think that maybe he's not like the next Sean McVay of college football.
Yeah.
Because Sean McVay, when he first turned the Rams around, everyone was like, oh my God. And then when Scott Frost turned around UCF, everyone was like, oh my God. And maybe Scott Frost isn't that guy.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. And to be honest, I don't see it for Nebraska. It's certainly not a national championship, but like even in terms of the rest of the Big Ten, I just don't think they have the athletes from where they stand right now. Like, we didn't talk about this on either of the last couple shows, but like JD Spielman's now transferring. And part of that makes me wonder, maybe part of it's Scott Frost, but part of it might just be like he wants to go to a place where he can get more attention and kind of bulk up his numbers a little bit, and an offense that's a little bit more innovative. So that's my thing with Nebraska. All of it would start with Scott Frost and the recruiting and the developing and all that. But from where they stand with Nebraska right now, I just don't see Scott Frost being the guy, and it starts with, I don't know if he has the players on the field to do it.
All right, guys, I got some questions here that we can do a rapid fires for. This one comes from David Tolman. Blake, I know you guys are ASU fans. Do you think Washington will beat Washington State this upcoming year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they can get it done. The Juice Alert wants to know, will Ohio State win the national championship?
Ever again? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Man, I mean, they're certainly on the short list.
Name three teams that have a better chance this year. You can't name three. I think they have a very good shot at winning it.
Yeah, they do.
Point.
I mean, it's, you know what? It's like, it's Clemson, Ohio State, and like Bama to me. So like,
it's always Bama. Doesn't matter when. It's always Bama.
So
yeah, they easily can get the job done. This is a fun one. This comes from Pac-12 Shorts. I think Josh and I might have the same one for this. If you could change one play in college football history, what would it be? I think Lyle, he would change about 50 plays from a certain night in Miami that he was at. But Lyle, unfortunately, it's not 50 plays. It's only one.
Let's see.
Play in college.
You know what?
Or Lyle can go.
This one should be easy, Lyle.
I have some creative ones.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So the Bush push is the easy one, or if you want to argue the long pass that set up the Bush push for USC.
The 4th and 9, yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that, I was gonna say the year Notre Dame just missed the playoffs in Deshaun Kaiser's first year. They played this rainy game at Clemson, and they came all the way back, and it came down to a 2-point conversion, and they like just missed it. So I guess if you want one outside the box, I'd say they get the 2-point conversion to tie it up, and then see what happens from there in Death Valley.
I think obviously Blake pointed out the easy one would be there are 3 plays from that national championship in the 06 Rose Bowl against Texas. There's the play when Reggie Bush busted off that like 40-yard run, and then instead of just going down and getting tackled for absolutely no reason, he tried to lateral the ball, and it got picked up by Texas. There was the play when Vince Young was like very clearly down with like both knees, and they didn't call it. And like the next play, he like scores a touchdown. And it's like, what is Pete Carroll not doing challenging that? Number one, why are they not reviewing it at all? And then of course the last play, like if he had gotten tackled, like SC wins. However, I'm not going to go mainstream. I'm going to go a year later, USC, UCLA, Trojans are undefeated. And John David Booty, big JDB, breaks his finger throwing a pass and hits a UCLA player's helmet. Breaks his finger, pass gets picked off, and UCLA wins 13-9 to, knock SC out of the title game. They were number 1. They were 10-0. They were already Pac-10 champs, and that game, like that was SC going to the title game for like a 4th straight year, and him breaking his finger and throwing a pick on that play, like was the season. So I say that.
The fact that John David Booty had them undefeated is just sad.
Dude, he was so good at SC. He just like was not good. He also looked like he was 45 when he was 21. So
yeah. The one that I had a really tough time coming up with something. But I just thought one that was fairly recent, and it didn't really affect an outcome of a single game, but it's more long-term. Take back the Mackenzie Milton injury play.
Yeah.
He had such good promise. He had such, great potential that we saw from him. Idea. Sounds like, hey, great video idea. Weird. I wonder who's done it. But the Mackenzie Milton injury was one that I was watching the game, and I remember like that was just bad. And they ended up going on and doing fine the rest of the season. But without him at the team, that really sort of put a hindrance on the end of the Scott Frost tenure at UCF.
Well, you also wonder if he wouldn't have gotten hurt. I mean, they still lost to LSU by, I think, 8 points.
Mm-hmm.
What if UCF, if they beat LSU, and I think it was, the Fiesta Bowl, the next year with a healthy Mackenzie Milton, if they go undefeated again, does UCF, do they get the edge, and do they actually make the college football playoff? So again, it's if that doesn't happen with Milton, but there's like a huge kind of, what if scenario that happens if he doesn't get hurt. That could have changed a whole lot in how we view college football. I had a few fun ones, but not necessarily like the Vince Young one that just scarred me. Like, what if that doesn't happen? But I thought of some fun ones like, what if they make the field goal against Auburn in 2013 and they win the game and Auburn doesn't? What if Boise State, they don't convert the 2-point conversion? Does that kind of like set Boise State back, and maybe they don't become kind of like the powerhouse blue blood, like a non-group of 5 or non-power 5 kind of team? A few years ago, what if JT Barrett, wasn't given the first down because he was short? Michigan wins that game and they go to the Big Ten title game. If they likely, beat Wisconsin, then all of a sudden they're in the playoff, and then Jim Harbaugh's got a completely different, attitude around him. Then all of a sudden he's a playoff coach. Maybe Michigan wins the championship game. There were some other ones, but I think those were some kind of like fun ones I had. Just again, what if scenarios that possibly could have changed college football. We got some
real quick. Somebody just pointed out that SC actually got beat that year. They did get upset by like Jaquiz Rogers and Oregon State. They scored like a last-second touchdown too. So there's that too. But SC was still like number 2 and was probably going to go to the Natty if they hadn't lost. But
hey, Jesse McClintock says, "Hey, Josh Schaefer, USC and Keaton Slovis are going to kill ASU this season. Thank you."
Okay.
You're welcome.
I mean, I'm not super sure about that, but okay.
I like it. Let's see what we got here.
What about the Michael Crabtree touchdown against Texas?
Yeah, that's
sick.
That's when you can take
sick
away
play.
as well.
Sick play.
Graham Harrell, baby.
Ballard Sports Media. Who's the bigger threat to Alabama in 2020? LSU or Georgia?
Georgia.
I'll say Georgia too.
I'm going to say LSU.
I think
there, Josh.
I think
there's a hawk sitting on like the telephone pole right in front of my window, and he's like looking in my backyard.
I think Georgia. This one's a good one. This comes from Abraham Lincoln's Top Hat 47. Great name. I mean, you have the best name we've seen so far today. How badly will teams that have huge stadiums and fan bases suffer from either limited or no fans? So I mean, that's the thing with a lot of these stadiums. You know, like Michigan, Ohio State, Clemson, LSU. They feed off the fans. I mean, it's a true home field advantage. But all of a sudden, you just have an even playing field with, you know, no fans, or maybe there's like a couple thousand fans. That's a great question. Like, how can that potentially affect some of these teams where they rely so heavily on the home field advantage?
So I think home field advantage is the concern here in terms of like actual results. But I think a lot of people have pointed out, like, what about these huge schools like Michigan, for example, that are bringing in like so much money just in tickets? So I think from that standpoint, it's worth pointing out. I don't remember who put it out there, but like ticket revenue is like not even close to how much. It does not even really attribute to the total revenue that some of these programs bring in. So like tickets is not the issue. I think it is like that home field advantage, because suddenly going on the road as Ball State, for example, Ball State going into Michigan in front of 110,000 people doesn't really mean anything anymore. Yeah, you're still playing Michigan, you're playing that huge team, but if there's no fans there, like, yeah, that's cool, but like there's going to be like something there that Michigan now no longer has. It's that advantage of 110,000 people.
Hey, chirp, chirp, go Cards.
Chirp, chirp.
I'd go, man. I mean, yeah, this is a good question, just because, like,
yeah,
I don't want to say that, like, you know, the home team doesn't still have some advantage, just because you know your home field and you played at your home field and you know the lay of the land better than anybody. But yeah, this takes a significant hit onto what the purpose of, you know, not just these home field advantages are, but what these games are. Because I mean, like you guys were saying, you can play in a big stadium like the Big House, but if you can hear your own echo, if you're, you know, Dylan McCaffrey at the line, you know, hollering out your own snap counts, that's a little different than having 110,000 fans just screaming. So I think the safest thing to say is we're about to find out what the significance of no fans is going to do in terms of the impact of these games and the impact of home field advantage.
You know, one of the things that we see, I know Josh and Blake, I'm not sure when Lyle's played last, but the NCAA 14 through whatever video game, all right? We talk about this a lot on the show. Why? Because it's awesome. When you're scrolling through teams, what does it pop up? Hey, 9th toughest place to play. Toughest place to play. Top 25 list of toughest places to play. Yeah, Death Valley's really hard to play in, but say you're Vanderbilt going in to play LSU and there are no fans there, it's going to be a little different.
You're going to see somebody from having a 95% chance to lose to maybe like 88%.
88, man, it's crazy now.
It will help. Like, I mean, again, it's for the most part the better team's going to win.
Yes, you're going to get a really good balance of
but it definitely will make an impact for like some games where it is kind of like a close, you know, head to head where, again, no home field advantage that can, and that's something I don't think, I mean, I haven't really taken into consideration, which is why I like this question so much, where it potentially can make it like, I mean, I hope a college football season happens, but if there's no fans or limited fans, we can see a lot of these teams where they might like have the talent where all of a sudden now, like in Oklahoma State, I don't know how team schedules look, but like if Oklahoma State has a game on the road at Oklahoma this year, a game that Oklahoma probably would win, all of a sudden Oklahoma State now, they have a much better chance to win that game, and all of a sudden they can make a push for the Big 12 title game or maybe the college football playoff. And again, maybe, you know, a team like SC where, I don't know SC's schedule, what if they have to go to like Autzen, if they have to go to Washington, if they have to go to some of these teams, or maybe even their game against Bama, all of a sudden now you have a more even level playing field. So we can see teams that should potentially win their conferences, be in the college football playoff picture, they might fall, whereas teams that were kind of sleepers or teams you didn't really expect, they can all of a sudden make a push. So again, it's a great question. I think that's something to monitor where it can impact college football this year. All right, boys, I think we have time for one final question. And it's a great one. This actually comes from Alexander Wenner. Do you guys like it when Josh's teams lose?
Preferably not. I do not care for that.
Brady, I think your mic went out when you gave a very vocal answer.
I gave a very astounding yes. But not as much as when Lyle's team loses, when he decides to stay back and not go on a road trip with us and hang out and watch ASU football.
That's
Just
also
saying.
true.
Just saying, Lyle.
It happened.
It
I
happened.
like it. I said final question, but one guy's been trying to get his in for some time, and it's actually a pretty good one. Our final question of the night comes from Matthew Page, and he wants to know who's the biggest Heisman snub of all time.
Christian McCaffrey.
I mean, I'm not. Whoever came in second in 1958, that was an absolute travesty.
I agree.
That was an absolute travesty. So we're probably gonna have to go and read some memories. I think we've talked about this in like previous shows.
Christian McCaffrey.
I think all
like,
have
like totally.
Yeah.
I do not have to think about it.
No, McCaffrey for sure.
Well,
Again,
who was it you talked about last week, Lyle? Where there was like, or I think it was Jonathan Taylor you mentioned, where he had like better numbers than I think it was like Mark Ingram, or
spoiler, I don't think Jonathan Taylor should have won over Joe Burrow. Like Joe Burrow had an unreal year. My thing was he just didn't even get invited. Like he wasn't invited. They couldn't put an extra chair out for him when the guy had better numbers than when Mark Ingram won the Heisman in 2009. And he had like 200 less total yards and 2 less touchdowns than Derrick Henry in 2015 when he won the Heisman. So, yeah, I mean, you know what? College football committee and college football people, you have enough room in New York for one extra chair to just let Jonathan Taylor sit and watch Joe Burrow win the Heisman just to get his recognition. But in terms of the biggest snub of all time, I mean, at least in my lifetime and memory, it's McCaffrey. Like if McCaffrey played on the East Coast and he played during primetime airtime, he would have won. So that was a whole difference. Derrick Henry played at Stanford, and Christian McCaffrey plays at Alabama. Christian McCaffrey wins the Heisman. You can put up the same numbers that they did. McCaffrey wins.
It's not close. If you switch him, it's not close.
Wilson D just said Orlando Pace, and during our fantasy draft, I was very high on Orlando Pace. But I think if I'll just pick someone else besides McCaffrey, I'll say Andrew Luck, just because similar Stanford, over there. And
maybe if he wins the Heisman, he doesn't retire early.
Hey, maybe.
I think McCaffrey's a good one, but I know a lot of people, because I'm reading the comments, as I always do, a lot of people are saying Deshaun Watson, which I went back and looked up his numbers. I mean, it's tough to go against Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson had such a good year. But the year Deshaun Watson didn't win, he threw for 4,600 yards, had 41 touchdown passes, ran for 630 yards, and had 9 rushing touchdowns. And I believe everyone's probably talking about his 2016 season, I want to say, unless I go back right now. Let's take a look here. Yeah, I don't think people are talking about the I assume not the 2015 season, because the 2015 season was the Christian McCaffrey year. So if you people are talking about the Deshaun Watson 2016 year, when you have 50 total touchdowns and 5,000 total yards and you don't win the Heisman, that's pretty tough.
Short run with an actual real comment this time. He said Peyton Manning.
What was it, 1998? The 1998 one where he barely finished second, I think it was. So that was
lost
another
to Ryan Leaf. Yeah.
Again, Short Round always has the great comments. I just want to say Blake would know who the snub was in 1958 because he was there.
Yep.
Well, considering my parents were born in 1961, I was there. I was there. But guys, that does wrap up this week's show. This was a fun show, guys. This was by far the most we've ever. I don't know what Brady's doing. Brady's doing this kind of like weird.
I'm looking something up.
Oh, he's looking something up.
The runner-up in 1958 was Randy Duncan. He was a quarterback from Iowa.
He should have won.
He had 106 completions on 179 attempts. He had 1,397 yards, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. The guy that won was Pete Dawkins, the Army running back, had 428 yards on 78 attempts and 5 touchdowns.
12 TDs and 9 picks.
Yep.
Incredible.
He should have won. He was a snub. But guys, thank you so much for watching.
In third place is the best name ever. It's Billy Cannon.
What position?
Quarterback.
Okay, good. What? How many yards?
He was a running back.
That is just a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. This was by far our biggest show we've done via, Zoom live. At one point, we had over 160 people watching. So again, if you're still watching, if you're with us for the entire hour and 10 minutes, we really appreciate it. Again, make sure to go to our Twitter at the @HHShow_. Vote for who you think had the best proposal, because again, those will be up later tonight, and we will announce the winner next week. So, guys, any parting final words before we log off for the next week?
Stanford, you belong in the Ivy League.
You guys want to announce? Do you guys want to announce who we're going to do this week, or decide who we're
Sure.
going to do next week, or do you want to keep that as a surprise?
Go ahead and announce it.
Who are we doing next week?
All right, Lyle, who's your vote for who you want to do next week?
Oh, I think next week is the Big 12. I mean, it just makes sense, right? You just move east.
Yeah, let's
Hey,
go.
we're all a committee now. We all run things. We got to all decide things together as one. So that's why I want to go and ask you guys. So
My first order of business is naming Paula Bovin the head of the College Football Playoff Committee forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brady,
Yeah, but then
who do you vote for?
Big 12.
Okay. Josh?
Big 12.
All right, so there you have it, Big 12. So for all you Big 12 fans out there, we're going to be doing the Big 12 next week, the Big 12 realignment. That's going to be a fun one as well because I got a lot on that one as well. So again, if you haven't already, make sure to follow us on Twitter at the Show_. We're going to be back again live next week at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on YouTube. Again, you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this realignment show, I think you're really going to like next week's as well because I think a lot of us, we talked about all of our conferences are just absolutely wild, and it's definitely something you don't want to miss. So again, thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for commenting. Follow us on Twitter. Give this video a thumbs up. For Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, Brady Klein, this has been Blake Harris from my girlfriend's bedroom in beautiful Monrovia, California, and we will see all of you guys right back here next week.
Hey, don't sleep on Chattanooga.
Don't do it.